We are joined by Senator Ralph Babet of the United Australia Party. Senator, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ali. Good to see you in the new year in 2024. So happy New Year. Happy Australia Day as well. I know it's just been passed, but happy Australia Day nonetheless. God bless the red, white and blue, the Australian flag, the best flag. God bless the Southern Cross, and God bless the Union Jack as well, the best flag in the world. Thank you, Ali.
You already broke me. We're not even into the first question yet. What I was going to say is I hope you had a great Australia Day, and I celebrated by dressing up as a walking Australia flag, and then I wandered over the Harbour Bridge and I joined in the Sydney festivities. And I have to say, Sydney was pretty patriotic and all the tourists were getting involved. It was quite nice. Did you do anything patriotic on Australia Day, or were you down there with the Invasion Day protests?
Well, I actually had to get out of Melbourne. I had to flee Melbourne for Australia Day. I actually went to New South Wales to deliver a speech to a group of UAP members and supporters on Australia Day Eve. When I came back on Australia Day, though, all I saw was the Australia Day Invasion Day protest, these darn communists running amok on the streets of Melbourne, and of course the statue that was cut off at the ankles. And as far as I've heard, the local council, I believe it's the Yarra Council, is considering not putting the statue back up. Bunch of communists, in my opinion, is what they are. These people don't love Australia. They don't love Melbourne. They don't love our history. I've had a gutful of all of these people, but let's talk about it.
Well, we've got the Labor Party in particular and the activist class telling migrants that they should be ashamed of the Australian flag, that our nation is evil and terrible, that they should unite against those of colonial descent to destroy the state, which was one of the quotes that we heard being put forward on these videos, which quite frankly included incitement to violence. Now, Senator, you are a migrant. I see you flying the flag every chance you get. Compared to the nations that the majority of these migrants are fleeing, is Australia really such a terrible country? And if people come here, shouldn't they be at least somewhat sensitive and respectful to Australia's history and culture?
Not only should they be respectful of it, they should absolutely kiss the hallowed earth of Australia when they got here. You mentioned colonialism. We're actually very, very lucky that Australia was colonised by the British in the first place. It would have been much worse had we been colonised, in my opinion, by the Chinese or somebody else like this. How bad would our lives have been then? The British gave us the systems that we needed to have the prosperous, safe, amazing country that we all get to enjoy today. So I'm glad that the British found Australia first and not somebody else, because I get to live in this country today. Now, I'm not saying that our history was perfect. It was far from perfect. No history in the world of any nation is perfect, but we are gosh darn lucky that it was the British that set this country up in the first place and that we all get to enjoy it today. I am a migrant, like you mentioned. I came here when I was quite young. I came here when my parents brought me here for a better life, and a better life I have had, and so has every other migrant that's come to this country. But I'm going to go off on a little tangent right now, and I apologize. I know we don't have much time, but I'd like to talk about multiculturalism. I believe that multiculturalism has failed our nation. And I'm saying this as a migrant. I think that we already have a culture here. It is the Australian culture. And I think that when people come to Australia, yes, you can pay homage to where you're from and have respect for your ancestry, etc., no problem. But when you come here, you adopt the values of Australia, you love our red, white and blue, you appreciate the culture that we already have here, and you integrate into our society. You don't freaking come here and then try and tear the country down and rebuild it and remake it like the hole that you left before you came here. You can bleep that out if you have to. But that's my personal views, and I'm going to stick to that. I don't care what anyone says. God bless Australia.
Well, you pointed out that we were lucky that we were discovered and colonised by the British, who were explicitly here to build a peaceful and equal civilization. It was one of the first things they set out. Even for the poor convicts who came here, they were able to earn their freedom straight away. And the dream of Australia was to be a prosperous and free nation. I think we pretty much achieved that in record time. But imagine how much trouble would be in if it was the French who colonised us and we were trying to use gendered language in a world where you no longer have biological gender. If things would be very confusing right now for woke politics if that was the case. But there is certainly a rise in civil tension, and it's quite concerning to see. We've got Labor bringing in nearly 1 million people into the country in a year, and we've got the left coaxing them to turn against Australia, which I think you just touched on, and play into this idea of the oppressor versus the oppressed Marxist narrative. Now, Australians who were born here, whose history is here, I mean, you have to expect that they would be unhappy about not only footing the bill as a taxpayer for what's going on here, but then being told that everything you stand for and all your history is terrible. Is it irresponsible of politicians to be playing this line? Because a lot of people who are elected, they use a bit of this race politics as a way to gain elections and to get more traction in the political sphere.
Mr. Albanese, Prime Minister Albanese, he is, in my opinion, and probably many people's opinions that you might speak to, the most divisive Prime Minister that we have had as far as I can remember. The most divisive. He's tried at every turn to divide us across all sorts of lines. First, he tried to divide us with The Voice. Then he's trying to divide us along socio-economic lines. Right? And now he's bringing all these migrants into the country. And I'm not opposed to immigration. I am a migrant. But he's bringing in all these migrants into the country that probably aren't going to assimilate very well into our society, that don't share the same values as we all should share here in this free democratic nation of Australia. Like I said, I'm not against migration, but I am against way too much migration, bringing in millions of people into the country in a very short space of time without having the infrastructure here to be able to cope with the extra people, the hospitals, the roads, the school systems, etc. Without having all of that here first, and also without first vetting these people to make sure that we are bringing people into the country that have an alignment with the values that we share. Prime Minister Albanese is a very, very divisive man, like I said before. And I think that the voters should punish Mr. Albanese severely at the next election, but not just on that front, also on and I know I'm going on a tangent, but also on the cost of living front. People are struggling. Kids are going to school hungry. People aren't able to keep up with their mortgage repayments. Have you been to the shops lately? You pay $100, your trolley's got a few items in there. Have you been to the pump? It's costing you $150 to fill up your tank. This is unsustainable. This Prime Minister's got to go.
Well, I suspect that the left's aggression toward Australia Day has a lot more to do with the fact that Australia Day is a day of public unity, a shared love of nation, and it's a day for citizens to have a laugh and a barbecue together. It creates a together loving society, and that is a Marxist worst nightmare, to have no class struggle and to have no...
Ellie?
Yeah, of course.
You raise a great point there about Marxism and all these sorts of things. Look, I think, this is my opinion once again. Now, I think that the push to rip apart our nation, and it's happening in all Western nations, the push to tear down national sovereignty, to take away that love of country from the kids that are coming through the school system today, it's not an accident. This comes from on high. The men that run the world from behind the scenes, the one thing that they hate most of all is they hate national pride. They hate national sovereignty. They hate national unity. Because why? They are globalists. They want to tear down borders, and they want to create a global community. Now, you might think, global community on paper sounds great. Why can't we have a global government? Why can't we have a global health system? Why can't we have a global financial... We kind of do already, but why can't we have one global currency, right? Why can't we all be beholden to the UN? Because, listen to this, it's hard enough for you to affect change here, ladies and gents watching this at home, hard enough for you to effect change here. Your local member is probably just down the road, 5 minutes from your house, 10 minutes from your house for most of you anyway. If it's that hard now to affect change through your local member, to have them listen to your concerns and do something about it in Canberra, how hard is it going to be when the person that controls your sector, makes the laws for you, is over in Brussels, right? Is over there in Belgium or wherever else they decide to set up this new global framework? And the answer is this: it will be impossible to effect any change. And that's what they want. They want to rule from on high and have everyone else at the bottom as plebs. That is what the globalists want. I will not stand for it. I've had a gutful of all of them. I'm off to Canberra next week to fight for every single one of you that's watching this broadcast right now. I hope you support me.
Well, I hope they support you as well. And look, the left are going to get their chance again for Anzac Day. There are already plans to make a mess of that as well. But unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us here today on Spectator TV.